Hello everybody, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. I'm seeing green and I am seeing green on the chat. Yes. And I'm seeing myself moving and shaking. Let me check my sound to make sure my sound is up. And yes. Yes, good. And one last thing. Yeah, good. We have playback. Yeah, guys, so first I want to thank everyone for joining. All my subscribers, all the people who like my videos, all the people who share my videos, and of course, all of my patrons and all of the people who donate Super Chat. You guys are immensely appreciated. You guys literally help the show to keep ticking along. In one of my earlier chats, and by the way, if you're patron, you have the phone number, feel free to call in at the end of the show. In fact, let me make sure that is up so everybody can, so I'll be able to get those. All right, good. Perfect. So yeah, patrons, feel free to call in. I'll say this throughout because I only have like 2 people here right now. And of course, everybody feel free to chat. I still pick those chats up in the end. In the last video that I did, I was talking about the International Criminal Court pressing or doing an inquiry into Duterte. Duterte is the Philippines prime minister or president. I don't remember which one. I don't know how they aim their government or how they I don't know the names of the positions, but the position is fundamentally the same. The person who's in charge of the Philippines, the president or the prime minister, Duterte. Now, Duterte has gone on a killing spree. Essentially, anybody arrested for some kind of drug law, he murders them. He's okay with gangs murdering human beings for drugs, either, I would imagine, taking or selling. He doesn't. I would doubt he distinguishes between those things, and that's been his solution to what they consider to be a drug problem in the Philippines. The International Criminal Court has opened an inquiry into whether or not he needs to be charged for human rights. What is it called? Crimes against humanity. And my point in that video was, what the fuck? Was, yes, I have no issue with you taking Duterte. Good. Duterte is a fucking maniac. And, he should not be a head of a government if he's going to believe that he should go out there murdering drug dealers or sellers or users. Fair enough. But, if you as an organization is going to have any level of integrity, meaning if there's a shred of integrity and consistency in your organization, how do you look at the world map? You have the world map laid out. And as you tally up the murders, the deaths, the crimes against humanity, the things that take place that tear at people when they hear about it, when you put out your list and you look around the world, you end up in the fucking Philippines? Duterte? George Bush invaded a country and killed 1 million people. And the point that I made here was, how on earth do you end up at Duterte and you miss Bush, Blair, Cheney, and I added Obama and Trump to that list? Now, I made the point for Obama because Obama expanded those wars. It was murdering people up to 90% in some cases. Hell, fuck it. Say 90% was dramatically too much. Let's say 60%. At the end of the day, the majority of the people, the overwhelming majority of the people that you're murdering are still civilians. Still civilians. You are creating the terrorists that you are out there seeking. They're acting like this guy is fighting terrorism. It's creating those terrorists. But the point that the person made, and I don't know if the guy was a troll. I don't know if the guy was being earnest. God, I hope he was a troll. God, I hope he was a troll. It's possible he's being earnest because I know these people are out there, which is why I'm making this video. But God, I hope he was a troll. Makes the argument that, look, Obama only killed 1 person. And that Obama was out there fighting Marxists and terrorists. And that the people that he murdered, he wasn't killing civilians. He was out there killing terrorists. And it's Marxist lies that are being smeared against him that people are talking about. Meaning, Anybody who's saying Obama has killed more than, more than one person, and that one person being an American, more than one American, is somehow fell into Marxist propaganda that is some kind of dictatorship of something. It was just some weird amalgam of things, but definitely Marxist. It was definitely Marxist. And that all of those things were lies and propaganda. There is no way to engage this because this is functionally insane. So I don't try to engage you with the person who believes this, which, God, again, I hope he does not believe this. I will try to engage with the people who have a lot more common sense. And I say that to say, even people who are Obama fanboys, even people who are like Clintonites, full on drunk the Kool-Aid, oh my God, Democrats are awesome. Even those guys, even those people who walked out of the auditorium when Hillary Clinton lost that election with tears in their eyes, even those people would admit, would say, yes, he's killed, but he had to do it for reasons. I've heard people have these arguments, and they would say, he did it for reasons. Meaning, they don't deny the fact that he was murdering people. I've never heard anyone deny that. I've never heard anyone deny that. But, just to make my point plain, and just to make it very clear, Bush, Obama, and Trump, all of these people have been killers. And all of these people, the foreign policy that these guys take, for the most part, makes the issue worse. We should not be kicking over countries. We should not be attacking countries. We should not be doing these things to undermine those governments. We should not be taking that behavior. We should not have destroyed Libya. We should not have destroyed Iraq. We should not be bombing in Somalia. We should not have military in 70% of the world. We should not be doing these things. With a straight face, the President of the United States will look at us and say, look, we can't afford health care. We can't afford that. Can't afford to pay for education. Can't afford that. We can't spend $1 trillion on our military. We can do that. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. My point in this, my argument here, is that just like Bush, when Obama took office and did not prosecute Bush for war crimes, taking us into Iraq, murdering 1 million people, by the way, that was us. Destabilizing every region of the world, that was us. When he didn't prosecute Bush for that, Bush admitted to torture, if nothing else. Bush admitted to torture. He admitted, said, yes, I said, damn right, I said, waterboard him. That's torture. That's against our laws. That's against international law. When no prosecution would take place. When Bush left and sat in his footy pajamas and started finger painting and then started hawking a book, everybody was okay with George Bush. The left all of a sudden became okay with George Bush. The guy's a fucking war criminal. The left became okay with George Bush. Obama gets in office and expands the drone bombing program. Expands that program even to the point of killing multiple Americans. How do you give that a pass? And why is that the policy you want, even from supposed to be a lefty Democrat? Let's take a look at this. Let's walk through a little bit of history with Obama in regards to the military and take everything else off the table. Take economics, everything else off the table. We're talking about foreign policy. Now, for the first point, I don't know how I feel about the Iran deal. When the Iran deal was passed, I was all for this deal. If you're going to stop a war with Iran, good, I'm going to be for the deal. It is possible, however, that that deal has made it easier to start a war. If that makes sense. Some of the provisions of the deal may make it easier to start a war. What was Obama's intent? I don't know his intent. If his intent was, look, I don't want this war to take place, then yeah, I like it. If his intent was, I need to create some kind of, that would just be a weird thing to do if you're trying to do a deal. You just have the war. Whatever. I'm sketchy about the deal because I don't necessarily know the outcome, but I don't necessarily hold that as a dark mark against him. So that's the first point. If you're trying to stop a war, I don't care who you are. Good. I like you. I like you. Unfortunately, it didn't stop there. Meaning, if this was the only thing we're talking about in foreign policy, we would not be having this conversation. Unfortunately, this is not the only thing we're talking about in foreign policy. This was when Obama first took office. The hope and the promise of a president that ultimately failed that hope and promise.
Oh, Mr. President, the floor is yours to give your Nobel lecture.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, citizens of America, and citizens of the world. I receive this honor with deep gratitude and great humility. It's an award that speaks to our highest aspirations, that for all the cruelty and hardship of our world, we are not mere prisoners of fate. Our actions matter and can bend history in the direction of justice. And yet I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the considerable controversy that your generous decision has generated. In part, this is because I am at the beginning and not the end of my labors on the world stage. Compared to some of the giants of history who have received this prize, Schweitzer and King, Marshall and Mandela, my accomplishments are slight. And then there are the men and women around the world who've been jailed and beaten in the pursuit of justice. Those who toil in humanitarian organizations to relieve suffering. The unrecognized millions whose quiet acts of courage and compassion inspire even the most hardened cynics. I cannot argue with those who find these men and women, some known, some obscure to all but those they help, to be far more deserving of this honor than I. But perhaps the most profound issue surrounding my receipt of this prize is the fact that I am the commander-in-chief of a military, of a nation, in the midst of two wars. One of these wars is winding down. The other is a conflict that America did not seek, one in which we are joined by 42 other countries, including Norway, in an effort to defend ourselves and all nations from further attacks. Still, we are at war. And I'm responsible for the deployment of thousands of young Americans to battle in a distant land. And some will kill, and some will be killed. And so I come here with an acute sense of the costs of armed conflict, filled with difficult questions about the relationship between war and peace and our effort to replace one with the other. Now, these questions are not new. War in one form or another appeared with the first man. At the dawn of history, its morality was not questioned. It was simply a fact, like drought or disease. The manner in which tribes and then civilizations sought power and settled their differences.
I'm not going to show the whole speech. I want to start that to give you an idea of the tenor of the speech. Meaning, the speech was, for all intents and purposes, an explanation of, like, a justification for war. It was a history professor giving a lesson on war is necessary sometimes. The interesting part of that is the propaganda that was built into the beginning of the speech. Well, we're in a second war that the United States did not seek. No. If you kill 1 million people, and you destabilize a region of the world, and you don't seek that, meaning you don't realize that there are going to be repercussions for killing 1 million people and completely smattering a country, then you're an idiot. Then you're an idiot. Obama has to know that the United States took those actions. He has to know that there will be consequences to the action of destroying a region of the world for no reason. Meaning there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Zero. He understands that there was a thing to implicate Bush, to impeach Bush, to go after Bush, and he said no. But the fact that the thing existed meant he understood that there was no connection between 9/11 and Iraq. We destroyed a country for no reason, and there was no consequence for us destroying the country outside of the 3,000 Americans that died and the trillions of dollars that we spent on this conflict, not to mention the over 1 million Iraqis that lost their lives from our actions. Not to mention ISIS, or for the most part, ISIS being the precursor, or the precursors of ISIS being generated in the conflict that we ourselves enacted and inflicted on Iraq. Those were real places. They gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. They gave him that Peace Prize because they thought that he would be fundamentally different than Bush. And it was their hope of, hey, do something different in the world. You're being terrorists in other countries. Do something different in the world. You destroyed a country, and we're paying the consequences for the country you destroyed. Do something different. The president did not listen. Obama himself, meaning the White House, releases their count of civilian deaths. The first point that was made was Obama only killed one person, and everybody else that was killed, he wasn't killing civilians. Let's go by his own count. So let's at the very least establish the base level. Let's establish that, look, we agreed that you murdered civilians, or you would use your language, kill civilians. At least let's agree that some were killed before we move on from that point. So that's the first point. If you don't believe me, believe Obama himself. White House releases this count of civilian deaths and counterterrorism operations under Obama. The United States has inadvertently killed 64 and 116 civilians, between 64 and 116. Man, I can't believe they said this with a straight face. In drone and other lethal air attacks against terrorism suspects in non-war zones, the Obama administration said Friday. And that's probably the catch. What is he determined to be non-war zones, and what is he determining to be civilians? Language is slippery. Language is slippery. When people say things in a way that know that you're going to have an impression of what they're saying. Meaning, I'm saying this in a particular way that is going to give you a particular connotation. Now, if you ever pin me on this and say anything to me about this, I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail. But that little bit more in detail is going to be made like, look, I didn't say that. You imagined that. I said this. So I said civilians. Somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute. This thing says that all these other people died. How are you calling this a civilian? Well, my definition of civilian is XYZ. You didn't know his definition of civilian was XYZ. He made that definition of civilian to be whatever he wanted it to be. It is very clear that you would have a particular connotation to it, which is why they said it in that particular way. So to you, a civilian would be somebody who wasn't necessarily a part of the conflict, who had nothing to do with this, and yet was killed by their operations. Their definition of civilian is, if they're 16 years or older, and they're, a boy, fair game. They were in that particular territory. If they're 16 years or older, they're probably a terrorist. They're fair game. Now, that's effectively saying we're okay with killing kids. That's not your definition of civilian. The language is slippery. The language is slippery for a reason. When Mitch McConnell is out there, or Paul Ryan is talking about freedom, it has nothing to do with you. His connotation of freedom means the top 1% and the person with large amounts of cash being able to dictate whatever the hell they want to dictate. Meaning, we're going to give them more cash. We're going to put more money in their pocket. And that more money is going to give them more freedom of speech for them to give us more money. The words themselves are changed depending upon the person who's saying them. They're trying to get across a particular point, a particular connotation. And they would use this kind of legalese knowing that you're going to have a perception of these events. That's all I'm saying in this. The language in this starts off slippery. Let's keep going. The United States has inadvertently killed between 64 and 116 civilians in drone and other lethal airstrikes against terrorism suspected in quote-unquote non-war zones, the Obama administration said on Friday. In releasing only aggregate figures, that did not include when or where the strikes occurred. The administration shielded those claims from meaningful public scrutiny, even as it sought to bolster its own assertions about the accuracy and effectiveness of the operations. My point here is pretty straightforward. If you're making the argument that no civilians were killed, the White House itself disagrees with you. Reality disagrees with you at a bare bone minimum. By their own estimates, 64 to 116 civilians. I just want to start here at a premise. If you ask a cop, how many people have you shot? Or if you ask the police force, how many people have you shot? Do you believe that number is going to be bid higher or lower? I mean, do you believe they're going to give you an accurate number of the people they've murdered in their operations as police force? I did a story the other day where cops in Baltimore were keeping toy guns just in case there was an accident, so they can say this guy had a gun. And I thought, I was terrified for my life. I was terrified. I thought that child was going to murder me. Of course, anybody, honestly, if you're being honest, of course they're going to lowball the number. Of course they're going to lowball the number. So let's look at more objective sources. But I definitely want to start with a base level. On his second point, all right, right here. Map shows where President Barack Obama dropped his 20,000 bombs. The guy who got the Peace Prize dropped 26,000 bombs in the last year that he left office. Let that sink in. At some point, they were running out of bombs. They dropped over 20,000 bombs in his last year in office. The guy who got the Nobel Peace Prize. Incoming President Donald Trump has said he will wage war on ISIS, vowing to bomb the shit out of them. As the world gears up for a seemingly more violent 4 years, it is worth reflecting on Obama's tenure. According to newly released figures, Obama had already upped the number of bombs on foreign countries. Yeah, let's cut that off. The U.S. bombs dropped to 26,171 bombs in 2016, 12,192 in Syria, 12,095 in Iraq, 496 in Libya. Oh, look at that. 35 in Yemen. Oh, pursuant to starving and killing Yemenis. That's what's taking place. Saudi Arabian government is starving and killing Yemenis. There's a cholera epidemic that's outrageous. But the United States has been assisting in this. Barack Obama was assisting in this. Does this count for the death toll? Assisting a sadistic government, Saudi Arabia, in starving and murdering Yemenis. Does that add on to Obama's numbers? 14 in Somalia, 3 in Pakistan, 1,337 in Afghanistan. Here's the question. Here's the operative question. Now, I make the point that the number of people that he's murdered is being lowballed by the White House. But just as a flat fact, you're wrong on that point by itself. Just the White House government says you're wrong. The Obama administration says you're wrong. They murdered civilians. Now, I'm saying anybody who's done this is probably going to lowball this number. No government wants to tell you the real number of how many people they've murdered or things that they've done that were consequential in getting other people killed and murdered. So my argument is going to be that number is massively higher than what the Obama administration is saying that number is. They're in 7 other countries around the globe. Shouldn't the question also be, what authorization does the United States have to do this? Meaning, when Obama was in office, what legal construct? I mean, after all, he's not a king, right? What legal construct was in place? And this is Bush also. What legal construct allowed the Obama administration to legally bomb these countries? I have an answer for that, or at least they do. When the U.S. military strikes, White House points to 2001 measure. 2015, 2016. They're using a measure from 2001. That's interesting. Pentagon Press Secretary Peter Cook walked into the Pentagon briefing room on the afternoon of August 1st with an announcement. The United States has just launched airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Libya. Reporters in the room jumped in with questions. Why now? What are the targets? What's the end goal? Finally, Cook's briefing. A reporter raised her hand and asked, under what legal authority were the strikes being conducted? Under the 2001 authorization for military force, Cook replied, similar to our previous airstrikes in Libya. Understand what's being said here. The thing for Bush, meaning the thing that was given for George Bush to allow him to attack Iraq, is being used to attack Syria, Libya, Yemen, Somalia, and Pakistan. Now, just so we're clear what these things lay on the map. Syria and Iraq. Libya, nowhere near Iraq. Yemen, further away from Iraq. Somalia, even further still from Iraq. Pakistan, nowhere near Iraq. Afghanistan, nowhere near Iraq. If the president is using a 2001 authorization that in no way envisions Somalia, Pakistan, Libya, Yemen, how are they bending this law in this way? And is it even legal at that point? Meaning, nobody challenged them on this. Nobody took them to court on this. But if they took the President of the United States to court on this, saying, you do not have legal constitutional authority to bomb those nations, and that 2001 authorization that Bush received does not give you the privilege of bombing Syria or Yemen or Somalia. It does not give you the privilege of any of these things. Libya, Pakistan. What does any of those countries have to do with Iraq? What? It is a fig leaf. It is a fig leaf that doesn't all fit that well. You're still seeing a little bit of nut here and a little bit of penis over here. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. So right off the bat, this is an illegal war. You have all of these neocons that are in Congress. So none of them want to ask the question or take into court on this particular point of what authorization does the president have to bomb these countries? What? What? How? Where did he get it from? And does the 2001 authorization really allow him to bomb Yemen and Somalia? Yemen at the behest of the Saudi government. But Libya, they destroyed Libya. They turned Libya into a dumpster fire. That's the first point. That's the second point I want to make. Not only is the premise that nobody was killed wrong. The White House even gives a lowball number saying that, yes, we've murdered people. They don't even have authorization to be in the countries that they were in. Let's keep going. The other point. He only murdered one person. Even that's wrong. Even that's wrong. Let's see. United States has 4 Americans killed by drones in counter-terror strikes. Attorney General Eric Holder has disclosed in a letter to Congress that 4 Americans were killed in United States drones in the course of the government's attack on terrorists. Since 2009, the United States, in conduct of United States terrorist operations against Al-Qaeda and its associate forces outside the area's active hostilities, had specifically targeted and killed 1 United States citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki, Holder said. The United States is further aware of 3 other United States citizens who have been killed in such terrorism operations over the same time period. Samir Khan, Adad al-Rahan al-Awlaki, Jude Mohammed. These individuals were not specifically targeted by the United States, Holder wrote. Well, that's interesting. That's fucking interesting. They weren't targeted by the United States. One, you murdered, and al-Awlaki, he was an American citizen. We need to get back to that. The other ones that you murdered were also American citizens. You killed this kid, saying that, look, those were just accidents. We murdered his kid by accident. That's what Eric Holder came up there and just said. When he's saying this, if you notice that the kid had the last name of his father. Kid had the last name of the father. Let's take a look at this a little bit more, because I want you to see the explanation that Holder gives for being able to murder American citizens. Now, it's bad enough that you're going into countries and murdering their population, but now you're killing Americans. So what is the justification for the Obama administration to murder American citizens? Well, that's interesting. Let's see. Where is it? Holder's letter, released before a speech by President Obama, represents the administration's most specific statement on policy on drone strikes against Americans. Right here. Jude Khanan Mohammed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list was believed to be plotting a car bombing on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. On July 22, 2009, he was indicted in North Carolina for conspiracy to provide material support for terrorists and conspiracy to murder, kidnap, maim, and injure persons on foreign policy. The decision to target Anwar al-Awlaki was subjected to, quote-unquote, subjected to exceptionally rigorous interagency review and approved by Holder and the Justice Department lawyers, Holder wrote. Holder's letter released before a speech by Obama represents the administration's most specific statement on policy on drone strikes against Americans. The Attorney General explained the criteria that al-Awlaki, a radical Islamic preacher, a U.S. target. Killing him had a definite military value, Holder wrote. He was not targeted for non-military reasons. The anticipated collateral damage was not excessive in relation to the military advantage, and the attack would not inflict unnecessary suffering. So what? The president just casually classified an American as a military target and using that as a fig leaf to say, we can kill him now because we've classified him as a military target. Can the president do that to any American? Can any American be subjected to being turned into a military target so your life can be forfeit based on the president of the United States? I watched the speech Eric Holder gave out there saying, look, due process in the law doesn't necessarily mean by the judicial branch. The president of the United States can also make that choice. So the president has a kill list. The guy who got the Nobel Peace Prize had a kill list. This guy, eating his, his jello, then goes back. This guy and this guy. Kill these individuals as he shines his Nobel Peace Prize. Do you really want Trump to have the power to be able to axe Americans at will? The premise that was put forth, it was only one. The White House itself says it was 4. Again, you're wrong. Again, you're wrong. You're all sorts of wrong. If you don't believe me, believe the person who you're supporting who's saying you're wrong. Let's keep going. There's more. Right here, my point in this is, the guy who got the Nobel Peace Prize was killing American citizens. A guy who was a preacher, which is amazing. I didn't realize being a preacher can put you on a murder list. And his kid. He killed his kid. Would you want President Trump having that power? If you're going to escalate the ability for the President of the United States to say, I can kill whoever I want to kill, then the next president is also going to assert that authority. You've implicitly allowed the president to do a power grab. Do you want President Trump having that power? And if you don't, then you shouldn't let Obama have that power. Let's keep a look at his murder count. There's more. Unfortunately, there's a lot more. So let's talk about Libya. Right here. Clinton emails on Libya exposed the lie of humanitarian intervention. By now, everyone but the most delusional must concede that the Libyan intervention was a debacle of gigantic proportions. Libya remains a failed state with jihad is controlling huge swaths of the country, including the once prosperous town in Sirte. The security of Tunisia, Mali, and the Lake Chad region, Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, has been profoundly undermined with the spillover from the Libyan conflict. And, though NATO intervention in Libya was allegedly undertaken on humanitarian grounds, the human rights situation in Libya is a disaster, as thousands of detainees, including children, languish in prisons without proper judicial review, and kidnappings and targetings and killings are rampant. Now, the point that this article is making is, Hillary Clinton's email revealed that the reason it went into Libya had to do with oil, meaning for France and the UK to get oil contracts, with the United States itself not wanting Gaddafi to create this kind of pan-African currency. The humanitarian crisis, or humanitarian grounds, was a bogus attack. That's what they're saying. That's the point. That the emails revealed the truth of what they were saying to be a humanitarian crisis. Regardless of whether Clinton's emails is revealing this, Clinton was not the president of the United States. Obama was the president of the United States. And even Obama looks back at this and says, oh my God, this was a horrific thing to do. That a country is a failed state. Now, if they attack that country for unsavory reasons, whether the reasons were savory or unsavory, at the end of the day, death by a bomb by the United States is not, in fact, better than death by something that Gaddafi was going to do. Saying that we're going to protect Libya by blowing the shit out of Libya makes no sense, but that is exactly what the argument that the United States put forth. And with their wonder twins, UK and France, they set it ablaze. Hillary Clinton, when she found out about Libya turning into a dumpster fire, having open-air slave markets. Let me ask a question. If the results of going into Libya and destroying Libya is open-air slave markets, if it's a large number of people being murdered and killed by the results of your actions, meaning you as a president of the United States made a choice to destroy a country, destroy the government of that country to the point where they have slave markets, gangs, people being murdered, innocent people being murdered, does that not count on the murder count? Does that not count on the murder count? If your actions were foreseeable, meaning those actions were going to lead to the murder of a lot of people, does that not count to the murder count? Even if you couldn't see the specifics of what was going to take place, certainly you knew blowing that country to hell in order to get Gaddafi was going to leave that country into shreds. And yes, it left the country into shreds. When Hillary Clinton found out that Gaddafi was sodomized with a machete as gangs ripped him apart, and mind you, that this country was destroyed, fundamentally destroyed, this is her reaction. This person Obama chose to be Secretary of State.
Unconfirmed. Yes, we came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, I'm sure it did.
We came, we saw, he died. You know, the wild part about it, when Hillary Clinton's on the campaign trail, she looks like a robot. She does. It's like somebody put a thing in her and wind her up. She goes out. She doesn't want to say anything that's kind of off or anything else that she could have been attacked by and everything else. So I get it. That woman seems extraordinarily happy. And not just seem extraordinarily happy, genuinely extraordinarily happy. It doesn't seem like a canned thing. It doesn't seem like some kind of political posturing. It seems like, yes! We came! We saw you done! Did it have anything to do? No, I didn't have anything to do with it. It was nothing to do with me. She seems extraordinarily happy. Look at her. Let's look at her again. Don't take my word for it. Look at it.
So, I mean, that is the land of unconfirmed. Yes, we came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, I'm sure it did.
That woman seems extraordinarily happy.
So,
Genuinely happy. It's not like Hillary giving a speech. She was genuinely happy at somebody being murdered and at a country being fundamentally destroyed. This was a president that you're talking about. Didn't have a body count on him. He has a large body count on him in multiple countries around the world that, just to be clear, he did not have constitutional authority to go to. If they would have taken him to court, he would have had to justify using the 2001 authorization to go into one country after the next that he did not have any authorization to go to. He was in Syria illegally as a hostile force. Syria is not on the border of North Carolina. There was no justification for us to go into Syria. The terrorists, the threat that he's saying that we did not ask for, we destroyed those countries. Certainly we did ask for it based on our actions. You can't be that comically ridiculous to think that destroying a country wasn't necessarily going to have any blowback and repercussions. The lives that Obama took in his 8-year term, in his 2 terms, go far beyond this idea of 16 and damn sure go far beyond the thought that he was somewhat innocuous president in regards to foreign policy. He was a killer, like George Bush was a killer, like Donald Trump is a killer. Just because he's wearing a suit doesn't mean he's not goddamn guilty. Just to be clear, where is it? All right, let's move from Libya to, yeah, because there's so many countries. Let's go to Yemen. Obama, Trump, and Saudi Arabia devastated Yemen. Congress is acting slowly. The Washington House voted 366 on 30 Monday night to pass a resolution condemning civilian death, starvation, and the spread of disease in Yemen, admitting that much of the responsibility for humanitarian crisis rests with the United States because of its support of the Saudi-led military intervention, and noting that the war has allowed Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, and other groups to thrive. What they're talking about is Saudi Arabia has been waging siege warfare on Yemen. They've been killing and murdering Yemenis by the thousands. Saudi Arabia was not alone in this. The United States was assisting in regards to material support and dropping bombs. The first map that I showed you got across. Look at here in Yemen, they dropped 35 bombs. That's not including the support we're giving to the Saudi government. they've been murdering Yemenis, starving Yemenis, us, under the Obama administration, us. Does the Yemens not count in your body count when you're talking about Obama? Are the Yemenis? Do they just not matter? I mean, I don't understand what's going on in this calculus, believing Obama was somewhat of an innocuous president. And even lefties, when they argue this, they argue he didn't have a choice. He didn't have a choice. I've heard people who are typically on the left argue. Dyson. Yeah, Professor Dyson arguing. He didn't have a choice. What could he do? He was just the president of the United States. He didn't have a choice. Let's keep going, because unfortunately there are more people that he's been responsible for murdering. Let's keep going. Yemen, the graveyard of the Obama doctrine. The human cost of facilitating Saudi Arabia's proxy war. I'm going to put all these articles at the bottom. In fact, all these articles are at the bottom. Look at this one. I love this one. Let's talk about Syria, another place he doesn't have any justification for being in. Obama formally approves arming terrorists in Syria. Obama literally approved arming terrorists in Syria because he wanted to undermine the government. The fig leaf that he used for this, even though, again, no constitutional authority to go there, essentially functioning as a king with a fig leaf of some kind of, 2001 doctrine that in no way included the countries to which he's added onto the list of his bombings and knocking off people in his kill list. Come on. Are you really defending him? And you're acting as if you're from the left. How do you defend this? Obama formally arming terrorists. So he doesn't like the Syrian government, and he wants to get rid of the Syrian government. He's done fucking awesome in Libya with that country becoming a dumpster fire, with him himself coming back saying, yeah, I may have fucked that one up. I may have fucked up. Sorry I murdered all of those people. Sorry all those people died because of what I did in relation with Britain and the UK. And France. Sorry that you guys have open-air slave markets. But yeah, I kind of want to do the same thing to Syria. I had a good fucking time doing this to Libya, murdering those people and putting all those people in dire straits. This is the guy you're protecting. This is the guy you're protecting. The guy is a murderer. What standard are you using to say that the guy is not a murderer? If you're taking decisions, and those decisions have negative consequences where you're murdering civilians at insane rates, he is arming terrorists to literally destroy a government. How does that rest with you? How did that rest okay with you? That's what I'm asking. Donald Trump ended this, by the way. Russia called this a hostile act. The reason why Russia called this a hostile act is because if you're arming people who they're allied with, well, maybe there's a chance that you could shoot down their own munitions, meaning United States-backed Free Syrian Army shoots down Russian jet and murders the pilot. So the arms that the United States sent under Obama to terrorists in that region of the world were used by Russia. Were used by their forces to shoot down a Russian jet. Your president, the one that you think hasn't hurt anybody, is dragging us closer to war with his involvement in Syria. That's what's real. That's what's real. You can make a case that this pilot that was murdered is on his head. If he gave the weapons to the terrorist group because he didn't like, I don't like Bashar al-Assad, so I want to take him down. I'm Obama. No, Syria is not on the borders of the United States. It is not near North Carolina. It's not near any state. It's at the other end of the fucking world. And he's deciding, unilaterally, I want to take the guy out. So, with my massive ego, and all of the money that the taxpayers have allotted me, I am going to send that hard-earned taxpayer money to terrorist groups in that region of the world in order to take down the government. So, answer me this. Seeing that he's supporting terrorist groups, if he's prolonging that war, meaning you have this devastating war where hundreds of thousands of people were killed in Syria, and Obama is funding one side of that war because he dislikes Bashar al-Assad, and he's keeping this war going longer than what this war would typically go. Can you also put those lives on his head? The actions that he's taking has foreseeable consequences. Can you put the lives on his head? He's supporting terrorists to undermine a government. We've been bitching about a goddamn hack. He is funding terrorists to undermine another government. What is with this selective point of view? What is with this selective point of view? We can destroy governments. We can pay terrorists to undermine governments. We did the same thing in Libya. We can do that. People can know that we do that. We can flood about, swinging our gonads about. People knowing that we're doing these things. But at the same time, with a straight face, hack. Scream that somebody hacked the DNC emails. And that's an act of war. Come on. What the fuck is wrong with these people? These hillbots. And beyond that, I made a point about the 90% of people being murdered. Yeah, right here. Nearly 90% of the people we killed in recent drone strikes were not the target. U.S. drone strikes have killed scores of civilians in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. Controversial U.S. drone strikes in the Middle East aims to pinpoint and kill terrorist leaders, but new documents indicate that a staggering number of these targeted killings, quote-unquote, affect far more people than just their targets. According to a new report from The Intercept, nearly 90% of the people killed in recent drone strikes in Afghanistan were not the intended target of the attacks. Documents detailing a special operations campaign in Afghanistan, Operation Haymaker, shows that between July 2012 and February 2013, the United States Special Operations airstrikes killed more than 200 people. Of those, only 35 were the intended targets. During the 5-month period of operations, according to the documents, nearly 90% of the people killed in airstrikes were not the intended target. In Yemen and Somalia, where the United States has far more limited intelligence capabilities to confirm people killed are the intended target, the equivalent ratios may well be much worse. Meaning, in cases where we knew what the people were going to be, or had an idea, 90% of those people were civilians. What were they in places where we didn't have as good intelligence? If you want to call it intelligence at that point, that seems like fucking incompetence. Can't call it intelligence if you're killing 90% of the people you're missing. If 90% of the people that you're killing are civilians, don't call it intelligence. It's fucking incompetence. The Department of Incompetence. That's what you should call it. But my point in this is not the incompetence. My point in this is, if you're killing that many people, then you can't come to me and say that Obama didn't kill civilians. Obama killed a lot of civilians. Explain to me. You lefties who give this a pass. You lefties who think Obama was perfectly okay and justified in murdering people at this massive scale, who is pushing us closer to the brink of war with Russia. Explain to me, how are these justified? And are you telling me that killing civilians in this way do not create the monsters that you sought to get rid of? Meaning, in screaming at the top of your lungs at the Nobel Peace Prize that these are people that we need to fight and these are not the wars we chose and all this other stuff, this other nonsense, this propaganda nonsense, that you don't honestly realize that you having to kill this and wondering why the kill list is getting longer, that you don't honestly realize that murdering people in the way that you're murdering people are creating the terrorists. You are creating the monsters that you're seeking to destroy. And you're doing this all over the world. Why is the kill list getting longer? Explain to me that. Explain to me why you've made no great progress on terrorism. Now, Russia, working with Syria, have sought to destroy ISIS in that region of the world. And for all intents and purposes, they've eradicated ISIS. Do you think that the United States has moved from ISIS? Moved from Syria? The Obama doctrine was getting us more entrenched in Syria. And yes, Hillary Clinton, who wanted to put a missile defense shield in that country, an illegal missile defense shield, was going to take us in further. If you're asking me if Obama killed a lot of people, yes, they killed a lot of people, the majority of which were innocent, meaning they've been murdering civilians for 8 years. How do you justify this? How do you justify this? And to be clear, the United States offers to share Syrian intelligence on terrorists with Russia. Oh, that's good. By the same token, they start arming those terrorists. Donald Trump, he says he was going to stop it. He did not. The United States military has murdered 100 Syrians. When the Syrians responded, to terrorists in that region of the world. The United States military has essentially assisted terrorists in attacking the actual government. I just find the defense of Obama on this is amazing. United States ambassador confirms billions spent on regime change in Syria, debunking Obama did nothing myth. The reason why I'm doing this is because once I saw this, I was like, you know what? This is cosmic. I must do this particular one today. I saw this because there are myths out there that Obama wasn't trying to destroy the Syrian government, that he wasn't trying to undermine the Syrian government. Yes, he was. I'm sorry, he was. If you're paying terrorists to try to destroy a nation, then you are engaging in the destruction of that nation. The United States ambassador confirms billions spent on regime change in Syria, debunking Obama did nothing myth. The United States spent at least $12 billion in Syria-related military and civilian expenses in the 4 years of the 2014 to 2017, according to United States Ambassador Robert Ford, Ben Norton reports. Syria, for the most part, or ISIS, have been somewhat destroyed in Syria. We're still there. If Obama was still in office right now, we would still be there. Understand what I'm saying? We're illegally in a country. When Obama was in office, we were in that country illegally. The country is not one of our states. It is not on the border of North Carolina. It is not attacking us. We do not have barbarians at our gates. We did not have barbarians at our gates when Obama was in office. And yet, he still carried on this idea of empire. He still carried on this idea of murdering civilians abroad. If you know that your actions are going to end up with somebody else dying, then yeah, it's murder. You knew in advance that what you were doing were going to kill somebody. It is murder. I use the term because the term fits. If you're going to say that Obama was this weak president on foreign policy and did nothing on foreign policy, I would say you are massively insane. He did a large share of killing. It just so happens that many of those people and most of those people were civilians. I don't understand your defense of Obama. And by the way, the Nobel Peace Prize, they wanted their prize back. They were like, yeah, we shouldn't have given him that prize. Don't take my word for it. Take theirs.
The Nobel Peace Prize Committee is super secretive. They don't want anyone to know how or why they pick who gets the big award. They actually sign statements saying they'll keep a vow of silence for 50 years about the committee's discussions and decisions about the award and the candidates. But last week, the former secretary for the committee, Geert Lundestad, published a book called Secretary of Peace. In it, Lundestad writes about his 25 years of service on the Peace Prize Committee. And now the committee is accusing Lundestad of a breach of trust because they say he revealed too many secrets in his book. Among those secrets were some of the details around President Obama's 2009 Peace Prize Award. And that's where this story gets juicy. Because apparently, even the committee itself is disappointed that it gave Obama the Peace Prize. When the prize was announced, much of the world was like, excuse me? The President of the United States, who drops bombs out of drones all over the place. This is the guy you're giving a peace award to? In the book, Lundestad writes that no other peace prize elicited so much attention, and that even many of Obama's supporters themselves thought the prize was a big mistake. Lundestad writes that the committee gave the award to Obama in hopes that it would strengthen the president. When he ran in 2008, Obama promised to stop America from being such a warmonger. When he started falling through on that promise, the Peace Prize Committee thought perhaps they could bolster Obama's resolve by giving him the prize. But obviously that didn't work. The committee was disappointed, to say the least. Lundestad goes on to reveal that Obama actually wanted to skip the awards ceremony in Oslo. The president's staff asked the committee whether or not past winners had ever skipped the ceremony, and the committee was like, no, not on purpose, only when governments held them back from it. Lundestad writes that it was only then that Obama realized he needed to go pick up his Peace Prize in person. So the committee was disappointed in their choice for Obama as the Peace Prize winner, just like the rest of the world. This year's Peace Prize will be announced on October 9th. Let's see if they do a better job this time around.
The past winners of the Peace Prize included Mandela and Martin Luther King. In Obama's last year in office, he dropped 26,000 bombs. 26,000 bombs. In 7 countries. Beyond Iraq, meaning expanding his war thing into 7 countries, I think including Iraq. The majority of those countries, he had no congressional authority to be in, and yet still that in no way stopped him from breaching borders and dropping bombs. We were not under attack. We were not under threat. None of those. There are no barbarians at our gates. There's nobody trying to knock down our door. And the terrorists and the monsters that we create. Yeah, if you kill civilians, those people are going to be pissed. If you kill my mom and brother, I'm going to be pissed. I don't have a brother. But if you kill my wife, if you kill anybody in her family, if you kill anybody in my family, I will be pissed. And I may jump to sail with the fastest thing moving, even if that fastest thing moving is somewhat disastrous, destructive, and some kind of terrorist organization. We are creating our monsters. There are sane ways to go after problems like this. You're never going to kill your way to a solution. You're never going to kill your way to a solution, which I suspect is part of the reason why we have this particular issue. We have weapons to sell. Who's going to buy these weapons? Guess who's going to buy these weapons? The United States is going to buy these weapons, and we're going to find reasons to use these weapons. So yeah, we're going to have a standing military, and we're going to have this all over the world. So we're going to have 70% of the world covered by our special forces. And yes, we're going to blow Iraq to shit. Yes, we're going to expand those wars once we get into Iraq. Yes, we're going to try to undermine governments. If you're being honest with yourself, Obama was a large part of this during his term, and in no way did he pull back on this. It is comical to say that he has no deaths on his record. It is more comical to say that he only has 1 American death on his record. And even by their own statements, they get across that they murdered civilians. Yes, they lowball it dramatically. And I kind of went through the different countries. I went through the murders and all this stuff because I just wanted to make this point. Taking everything else off the table, even if you're just talking about foreign policy. If you're a lefty, certainly you can't say this is a win. Be honest. Be honest. You may find reasons and justifications and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, you had a neocon president. You had a neocon as a president. Be honest. All right. There are people here today. Guys, if you're on my Patreon account, feel free to call in. I'll take the call. The number itself is on Patreon, so I think I have a video and a post on it for people to call in if it fits their fancy. Otherwise, we can just go to quotes. Beat down neo-Democrats down until they leave the party or it becomes so weak a third party can beat them. Bob Ramirez. Yeah, so, yes. So I guess my feeling is that party is ill-equipped to deal with any of this stuff. If that party looks at Obama and thinks Obama was fucking awesome, then no, that party is completely ill-equipped to deal with this stuff. If they look at Kennedy, Joe Yuckmouth, I'm not even calling him Kennedy. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said Kennedy. I need to see his birth certificate before I call him Kennedy. If they look at Joe Yuckmouth and they looked at that speech and said, yes, we need some more of that, then yeah, they're problematic. They're problematic. He gives one speech after the next. I listened to him as he gave that speech. I let it go a little bit longer than I was going to give before because I like the way Obama speaks. The problem is I don't like the substance behind it. I don't like the things that he did when he was in that office. And no, he should not get a pass on it. I don't give a shit what his race is. I don't give a shit if he's a man. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care what your avatar is. What did you do when you had the opportunity in that office? Who did you lean towards? And again, taking all that stuff off the table, we're talking about just military. All right. We have a caller, Brian Ramirez. How goes it, man?
Hey, Jamal. How you doing, brother?
I am doing all right. So what do you want to talk about today? The Obama thing? I mean, he was a strident supporter. And let me say one more thing. When I listened to that speech, and I had this hopeful feeling like, oh, man, maybe this guy is going to be something else as opposed to what we've had. And not so much. Not so much.
No, completely let us down.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely let us down. What I also want to talk about is the fact that we're dealing with duopoly here.
Yes.
It's a false choice. Republicans and Democrats, I mean, they work in tandem to basically take away our ability to get anything done because neither one represents the people.
Agreed. Agreed.
So the only solution here is to deprive both of them of any support whatsoever.
Agreed.
I mean, that's really the only solution. If you report, if you support establishment candidates, you're going to get the establishment running things. I mean, it doesn't matter which side you vote for.
Because the question becomes, at which point do they change? Like, at which point do they bend your way if you continue to vote for them? It's like year after year, you vote for these guys, and they say, look, you just got to push them. Why do I have to push them? Why aren't they already there?
Right.
And not just why aren't they already there, at which point do they change if they know that they have your vote? I mean, ultimately,
they just take advantage of, exactly.
They take advantage. It's like, look, Republicans are maniacs. And because Republicans are maniacs, you have us. We're relatively sane. But yes, we're going to fuck you over too. And people are so terrified of Republicans that they don't hold Democrats accountable. Like, they just look at it and says, okay, these guys are maniacs, so we have to vote for the Democrat. And Democrat says, yes, you do. Yes, we can. I'm going to take that vote, and I'm going to say thank you very much, and I'm going to look at you and say you have nowhere else to go anyway, so I can do whatever I want in that office. And until people break that spell, until people realize, okay, these guys are the guys at the door. It's like the Matrix. It's like these are the machines at the door to get anything done. And cowardice is the thing that holds you back. Deprive them. I agree with you, man. I agree. You have to. It's like you have to pull yourself out the process at the very least and let them know that they can lose, and they would consistently lose over and over again. And yes, things will get massively shitty for us, but part of that massively shitty for us is the hope that people would wake up and realize they need to be a part of the political process. And yes, that may mean difficult. I don't say that lightly. I just mean there are real things that we need to deal with in this country, and those things are never touched. Can't deal with them because you're dealing with this stupid shit between the parties. It's like, deprive them. I agree with you, man.
Right, and that's the hard work is getting involved and making our third parties viable parties. That's the hard work, and it's going to be difficult to do because we've got so many people that are just reliant on the two establishment parties. We've got to get people to understand that we have other options, and they're better options.
Even saying no is an option. Like, when they keep making this false choice of, it's a binary choice, it's a binary choice. Well, null is also a choice. Neither. I don't want either. I'm not going for neither. Let me ask you this. What do you think about Brana's party idea? So Nick Brana has been going around trying to pull all of the parties together, like Green Party, Socialist Independent, Socialist Alternative, all these lefties and lefty groups that are, kind of all over the place. There's like 20 different lefty groups all believing roughly the same thing. He's trying to get all these guys under one umbrella. What do you think about his chances for this?
I don't think it's a bad idea, but again, as many have said before, hurting progressives is like hurting cats.
Yeah, it is.
It's not altogether wrong. It's not going to be easy, but I do applaud his efforts. I do applaud his efforts. I think it's a noble thing that he's trying to do, and I hope he's successful. And I support it.
Yeah, I hope he does too. Like, I hope it goes well. I would love to hear that there's some delegation where you have Greens and all these other groups, all these lefty groups, they're at that particular delegation, and they're voting on what it's like policy-wise. It's like you're going to start off as this kind of brain of sorts, where you just want this neural network of this capacity to actually do something, and build that. If you're going to talk about revolution and change, that needs to be something that can sustain itself. Like you're not doing revolution half-ass. You do it or you don't. And so, I would want them to have something where there's some brainchild of something that continuously work towards that particular goal. And I love this idea of the delegation. All these people have votes, all these people have groups, and come up with some way to have a fair, equitable way of having a certain amount of, each person give their points. So, no, man, I like it. What I would like, what I wish I would have, what would take place is when they have any summits, like the People's Summit, the Left Summit, the Unrig, Our System Summit, that these things are less summits where they have these meetings and groups and more governmental bodies, like almost like a little party apparatus where they're making choices and decisions on what they actually want to be. It creates some consistency to it, not just having these, we're going to meet, we're going to have a class, and 1 hour and a half, we're going to leave, you know, go about our affairs. And it doesn't necessarily have anything else to do once you leave. Have you ever been to any of these, like the People's Summit, the Left Forum, or there's one more?
No, it's definitely something I like to get a chance to go to, but I haven't as of yet. I'm actually looking at joining CFAR. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I have. I've had Victor
Revolt
on.
Against Plutocracy. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had Victor on. Yeah, Victor's. Yeah, he's hardcore.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, I like him. He's and what he's doing makes sense. Could you explain CFAR to the audience?
Well, it's Revolt Against Plutocracy. The concept, I'll be honest with you, I'm just starting.
No, you're fine. I can pick up the pieces on if you miss anything, but just your understanding of it, because it's a decent premise, and I love the premise of it.
Right.
So.
Okay. Hold on. It's about getting candidates. From my understanding, getting candidates to sign on to a platform.
Yeah, it's a contract.
I'm sorry?
No, it's a contract. Yeah, it's signing on to the platform.
It's a contract. Right. It's about getting them to sign on to a very progressive platform and saying that they're going to hold to these policies, and they're going to do whatever they can once in office to enact these policies.
Yes.
And they're understanding that our support is contingent upon their support of these policies.
Yeah. It's a decent idea. I mean, essentially, words are too slippery, man. We need to come up with another way of having political language. I mean, I would say if you're on the left, we need to come up with another way to have political language. And it's like saying, well, we're going to do great for jobs. I have no idea what that means. Or it's like, I'm going to support, people getting health care. It's like, well, good. I'm glad you support people getting health care. But what does that mean? What do you specifically mean by that? And, you get down to the details and it's like, well, yeah, I think people should have health care. But no, I'm not for single payer. It's like, oh, well, good. I'm glad to know that. But you should have said that, not, I'm supporting health care. The CFAR thing tries to put that down as specific items. Like, I am for single payer. Yes. We have no hedge. Like at that point, this is what you for. If you sign your name down to it, he did it or you didn't. You have a tool to judge me by. What I would honestly hope that CFAR gets the capacity to grow a little bit, where it can have people to be able to sign up for it if their candidate is going off the rails, like to make politics engaging just to the person itself. Create this kind of web where if person does X, this is going to be sent off. Meaning there's somebody in CFAR saying that guy just fucked up. And we're sending this tweet off to everybody who signed up for CFAR to know that this particular guy has just gone off the rails and this guy broke what he said he was going to do. Oh, man, I would love for that. Because at that point, you've bridged people all across the United States who's plugged into a political space to know that true or false questions, whether or not that particular person is towing the line that they say they were going to tow. I love that. If you're a lefty, and you're not on that pledge, why are you not on that pledge? What's the specific thing that's keeping you from it?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Yeah, man, I love it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you for calling in. I apprate it.
Oh, of course.
I got the opportunity to interview you a little bit.
Thank you for everything you do, man.
I do nothing but a show. I just run my mouth. That's all I do. It's like, what do you feel about this? This is what I feel about this. And just run my mouth. I would be doing it for my wife anyway, and I'm pretty sure that you guys prefer it over her. Oh, man. All right, man. You have a good Sunday.
You too.
All right, guys. Thank you, Brian, for calling in. Let's see. Who else says? I'm dead serious. Do you ever want to see a third party win? Yes, I do. I do want to see a third party winning in. Snort Y2K. I don't buy the Parkinson's with Hillary. I believe it's something far worse. Other than rigidity, I don't see Parkinson's need to be handwriting. The gap in reaction is what concerns me. You guys are thinking that why do you guys think she has Parkinson's? I think she's corrupt. I don't care about the Parkinson's. It's like, look, I've said this before. If they release those emails, And if those emails said Hillary Clinton was into BDSM and she has a boyfriend in Las Vegas, Nevada that she goes and visit every 2 months to get her fix, that's her business. I would not be up for them releasing information like that. That is her private business. I could care less. Don't care. Don't care. If she has something medical, I am sorry she has something medical. I don't care. This is the same woman that was giddy at a guy getting, raped with a machete and strangled and raped with a machete. So I don't particularly care about the Parkinson's thing. I do care if she's done something massively corrupt. I do care about corruption in my government. I do care that when she was in office, she was essentially still bought by the Russians and all this other stuff. I care if she's getting money from Saudi Arabia and giving these guys weapons deals, and they're giving money back to the Clinton Foundation. This stuff is quid pro quo, stuff that you're seeing that she was doing. I care about that. I care about that. I don't care if it was Republican. I don't care if it was Democrat. I don't care if it was some other party. I care about that. I don't want corruption in my government. And unless that stuff is punished, they're going to continue to do it. I don't care who. If you're going to run a campaign, add corruption to your campaign. Add corruption to your campaign. I guarantee you it would sell like wildfire. Most of the public look at the press as being biased and all this other stuff. For all intents and purposes, you can make the argument that corruption is too much a part of this process, especially if you yourself are not taking cash. Make the argument. Make it clear as a bell that the fact that these people are taking money is showing that to some degree these people are being bribed. Get it across. Whatever you want to say about anything else in your campaign, if you're going to talk about money in politics, you talk about them being corrupt and being hacks and being bought by a certain demographic or by a certain class. Bring class into the political discussion. If you want to bring it in that way. If you're uncomfortable, bring it in other ways. Bring it in from the standpoint of these plutocrats are buying politicians in order to affect legislation that is against your interests. That's where you start. Look, have all these other arguments in regards to, making sure you get a minimum wage and all this other stuff. But it needs to be clear on people's mind that there's a vast disparity between who you are versus who they are. Us and them, yes. I don't typically do that, but yes, us and them in this particular case. You are unbought. They are. Make it a political thing. Make it very clear, extraordinarily clear, that that's what's going on in American politics. So yeah. It's class warfare. Yeah, it is class warfare. Fair enough. Rainbow boom. Third party cannot win. Okay. Third party cannot win if it keep on being made more and more. But if a lot of the third parties come together, there can be a chance. Rainbow boom X. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, I agree. Like, I would love to hear Bronna come out and say, look, we're having the delegation on June 1st at this particular building. And we invite all of the parties that want to be a part of this to show up and come to this. We're going to have votes on platform on what we want to be on the left. We're making this some kind of convention of the left or whatever you want to call it. Give it a sparkling name. And publicize the shit out of it in lefty media. Contact all of these disparate groups and see if you can get these guys to come to something like this. There needs to be something. Even if it's not a party right away, there needs to be something that can delegate an order and some kind of organization. Nothing gets accomplished without something being organized to actually be able to make decisions and make choices to get those things done. That would be my only and main suggestion. Also, and let me be a part of it. I don't know my skill set, but let me be a part of it. Let's see. He is non-neckist of the no-necks. Oh, you're talking about... I know you're talking about. You're talking about the guy who was that plutocrat who was on there talking about. He called Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and said, "Shut up about talking about class." Yeah, the guy had no neck. But that being said, he's a plutocrat. He has all the money in the world to get medical treatments to deal with the no neck thing. My goal in this is to allow other people to be able to pay for their no neck surgeries and they're, dealing with the issues of not having a neck. So yeah, man. So yeah, he should be acutely aware of other people's suffering in this way. But again, he has all the money in the world. He can deal with those medical issues of not having a neck. I need to convince people to vote for Green or Libertarian. Oh, libertarians. Look, I agree with them on half of that stuff. On the other half, I think they have a massively misunderstanding of what freedom is. I think they have a vast misunderstanding of what freedom is. Sonia Warwick. Yeah, Bernie is still an imperialist. Have you heard Bernie Sanders' speeches recently? Have you heard the speeches? The speeches that Bernie Sanders has been putting out this impression of we should not be toppling governments. Even in that debate with Hillary Clinton, we should not be toppling governments. He was very clear on that. Now, you may say that he wouldn't necessarily unravel everything down immediately. Fair point. Fair point. But at least give him credit for what he said. Give him credit for what he said. Tyler Infinger, libertarian economic policies are fucked up. That's putting it mildly. That is putting it mildly. Like, they're willing to trade an apparatus that allows multiple people to be involved in the political process. It is flawed, yes, but it allows multiple people to be in the political process. And willing to trade that for just domination by the 1%. Essentially getting to the point where 1% owns everything. They don't understand, or at the very least they seem to miss the logic of what they're saying. Because the outcome of this would be dramatically more worse for them and everybody else. Private interest is theirs. It's not something you debate upon or anything else. It's theirs. It's what they take as being, this is mine. I want it through some means. This is mine. You have no interest. You have no input into private excess. What happens when that 1% starts to own 70%, 80%? What happens? Under the libertarian thought, that's perfectly okay. 1% domination of the overwhelming majority of the globe makes perfect sense to me. And that is an insane philosophy. That is an insane philosophy. Video game vision question tomorrow. War on drugs keeps cartels and terrorists in power. It keeps money flowing to black ops. Keeps banks powerful from money laundering. It keeps the prisons full. Yes. Yeah, video game question. Yeah. So I've read this thing. I did this article the other day where the overwhelming majority of the people who are in jail on drugs. A large share of those people are just people who couldn't afford to pay bail. That dwarfs the number of people who are in prison for violent crimes. Think about that. Like, so it's released that the Nixon administration, and this is another black mark on Obama, by the way, in regards to home policy. The Nixon administration has a war on drugs in order to castigate blacks and hippies. The thought being that we can keep these groups from causing political trouble for voting for Democrats because they tend to go left by creating a war on drugs and using that as a justification, a pretext to lock up blacks and hippies. They were thinking that Martin Luther King was a communist. He was a socialist, but they were talking about the guy like he was a communist because of, they looked at black groups at the time as being these kind of lefty groups. They look a little red to us. But understand how gross that is. You're putting human beings in cages. You're wrecking lives. You're wrecking communities purely for political ends. 2016, 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012, 11, 10, and 9. The President of the United States knows this. He has to know this. He's a law professor. The man's fucking brilliant. He's black, and he's supposedly on the left. Both bells that Nixon was trying to ring. And yet, he does nothing on this. Yes, he allows California and he allows the states from essentially bypassing and ignoring the law on this front. Good. But there was a simpler solution to this that made it a little bit more bulletproof, a little bit more difficult for the next administration to crack down on those states. Take marijuana off the list. You're the president. You can do it. You're the president. You can do it. Decriminalize marijuana. Weakness. Allow more and more people to be put in cages. Understand the problem with what we're saying. This African-American president that's brilliant, that gives these amazing fucking speeches, would probably understand that marijuana laws were there and designed to lock up blacks and hippies, and you do nothing about this. Allowing cops to lock up more and put more and more people in cages. Fucking justifying it with me. Bob Ramirez, will Bonna Brunch drop identity politics? So Bob, yes and no. You know, identity politics tends to go on a spectrum like everything else. If somebody says something racist, I would hope that they would denounce things that are being racist. By the same token, you should not run a campaign as if identity is the only thing that you're running with. Yeah, you should guard identity. There's nothing wrong with that. Martin Luther King was guarding identity. But it should not be to the exclusion of everything else. The thrust of your argument should be one of economics, with the idea that, yes, we're going to back up and support all of these groups. We have your back, 100%. But it is not going to be the thing on our lips every time we open our mouths. If that makes sense. Like, you can support identity. You can be strong on identity, but at the same time, not letting it be defining attribute of who you are. I am extraordinarily suspicious of people who use that as their defining attribute. It feels like you're being, well, you're manipulative at that point. You're obfuscating reality purely for the sake of using this as political fodder. Yeah, Bob, I hope they don't. I don't think they will. I don't think they will. If the left wants to win, identity politics must be drummed and couched in economic, greater social issues. Yes, yes, yes. Elephant on coke, yes. Agreed. Agreed, 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 agreed. Not claiming to carry hot sauce in your purse. None of your business. Right. Yeah, don't get in front of a black audience and say, yeah, I carry hot sauce everywhere I go, just in case we have a holdout. And I need to take out some hot sauce when I eat some fried chicken with my darky friends. Yes. Here's my hot sauce. The left doesn't want to win. SSS. No, it's not that. Everybody wants to win. It's... They have beliefs, like everybody else. Like, and in their beliefs, they believe that their beliefs are better than other people's beliefs. Meaning, I can do this better than other people can, so I'm starting my own group. So you end up with like 20 groups. It's problematic. It's an aspect of the left for whatever reason. Like, it seemed to be in our heads. It's like herding cats. Right-wingers tend to just be conformity. They just love conformity. You have a big, strong alpha male up there. They're falling in line with the big, strong alpha male. They don't like this idea of people being on their own, and you know, it's like I've had a conversation with right-wingers, and I've had conversations with plutocrats. Both were fantastically interesting, and both I left thinking, oh my God, why do they think this way? So with the right-winger, he said somebody was caught with pot, that somebody's kid turned them in. And the authorities went to their house, and he was like, I thought they were better people than that. And we're like, what the fuck are you talking about? He says, I mean, they were smoking pot. I thought they were just better people. It's like, you believe that because they were smoking a plant, that they were somehow less, like something in them is fundamentally different. But he did. But the only reason you would ever believe that is if you are so hung up on this thing of authority that any breach in authority, even if the breach shouldn't have been a breach at all. Meaning, even if this was something that the authorities should not have cared about one iota, it doesn't matter. Context doesn't matter. Reality does not matter. You broke the law. That's all that matters. That's an amazing point of view. It's like saying this would be the guy that would have turned back a slave back in because the law said it. This would have been a guy who during the 50s and the 60s, like it wouldn't have mattered what took place. Nixon said there's a drug war. Hippies are druggies, so got to put them in prison. Got to put them in a cage. They shouldn't have smoked that plant. They need to be in a cage now for a very long time. They need to be harassed and beaten. If the cops did it, I mean, the cops had to have a reason to do it. Yeah, they shot the guy in the face, but I mean, come on. They're kneeling for the Pledge of Allegiance. Those darkies. They better be fucking happy they're in this country. How dare they? How dare they? Cops are not shooting them in the face for no reason. They're shooting them in the face because they're doing bad things and they're doing things wrong. These cops are goddammit out there trying to hold back the night. That's that guy. That's that guy. On the other hand, I've spoken to plutocrats and lefty, supposedly plutocrats, and they would say, have you seen Donald Trump? It's like, yeah, man, I've seen Donald Trump. I've seen what he's doing. I know you're not that big fan of Obama because at this point, people know who I am. I know you're not that big of a fan of Obama, but God damn it, Trump is disgusting. I said, well, look, the Democrats needs to start talking about class. The public, for the most part, is primed up with this thing of class. The Democrats need to have that conversation. If you want to win, if you actually want to take seats, When you ask the public what they want all through the United States, they're very clear on the things that they want. And ultimately, Democrats allow their donors to dictate their policies. They call themselves moderates because they can't bend it or mend those two ends any other way. Meaning you have one side of the scale that dislikes the other scale, understands that they're being exploited by the other side of the scale. Democrats need that side of the scale. At the very least, they believe they need that side of the scale to get elected. So the plutocrats give you a lot of money, and they understand that the other side hates this thing with the money. And so they speak in terms in the way Obama did that makes themselves seem more moderate. They call themselves moderates. Now, they're still taking the money. Oh, yes, they're taking that cash. And when you're looking at policy, they're doing their bidding. Do you understand that Hillary Clinton also would have had a tax cut? It might not have been as gross, but she would have also had her tax cut. The argument that the Democrats make is, yes, we're beholden to our plutocrats. Yes, that's true. We are. But our plutocrats are less rapacious. They're not as bad as the other plutocrats. And those other plutocrats are going to be far, far worse. So, come on. Let us rape you just a little bit less. We'll be less worse. We'll be least worse. That is the consistent argument that they make. And then if you reject that argument, if you reject, you know, the alcoholic, heroin addict boyfriend, you have nowhere else to go. You're overweight, you're a fat slob, you have nowhere else to go. Fall in line. Fall in line. Those are the two arguments that are consistently made. Now, I would make the case that the only way you get around that or get past that is to say no. I may be overweight. People may not like me. But that doesn't mean you can disrespect me in the way that you do. And ultimately, you are no longer representing my interests. So, I am leaving, and I am bidding you good day. One or two things is going to happen. The party is going to fail miserably without that base, without those people getting involved in the political process in that way. They may fail miserably, and it may hurt as they fail and collapse miserably. But one or two things is going to happen. They will reform into something else that's more in line with what the public wants. Or they will be dissolved and something else will spring up to take their place. I am no way pretending that this is somewhat of an easy process. Unfortunately, we've allowed it to get down to this particular point in politics. But there are real problems. There are real problems. And honestly, these guys have spent a year and a half screaming about Russia. They're real problems. Taking the environment by itself is a game changer. It's a game changer. That doesn't get into technological innovation. That doesn't get into making sure people have the things that they need to live their lives. That doesn't get to any of that stuff. Trump and Russia. Trump and Russia. Yeah. Is that like the Democrats' version of the color purple? We are all so pretty much. Until you do right by me. Until you do right by me. Glad you caught that. I'm glad you caught that. That's hilarious. What? Jamal, I've heard that rhetoric so true. Fletcher Daniels. I was just listening to one of his lectures the other night. Hello, Moni G. What's happening, Moni G? Look up Operation Mindfuck, which I feel is the key to understanding his works. I'm going to look that up. That sounds awesome. In fact, let me copy this. Operation Mindfuck. What's crazy about the left-right dichotomy is the right sees themselves as individuals walking to the beat of their own drum. I know! It's like believing you're free, like the guy who asserts he's free and doesn't at all see his chains. But see, they believe they're free or they're doing their own thing because they fall in line to authority. For them, that's their reality. To them, they don't see the wall. If that makes sense. Like, they don't see the chain. To them, I'm choosing this. But they're falling in line. Ultimately, they're just falling in line. The beat of their own drum. The left believes in collectivism, yet act in reverse of the practice. That's amazing, right? It's amazing. It's like the shadow self. Guy Smiley, yeah. That's amazing. And you're absolutely right. The left is the one who believes that people should come together and have this cooperative economy and everything else. And yet, fracture to a billion pieces. And the right is like, fuck that collectivism stuff. I'm kneeling down to this big guy, this big alpha male here. That's so fucking weird, man. Good point. Really good point. Good point. God damn it, good point. Yeah. So funny. John Melton, there's never enough time. No, there never is. Homer 2342200. I have ever been too distracted to hunt down the corrupt shit Wolfpack has done. Holly Siegler did a video about how they fucked over a candidate in Maine. Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up. I am going to have to look that one up. Men going their own way with a bunch of brave souls. Elephant on coke. Who are you talking about? No, Jamal wants you to vote for Green so you can feel good about your pretend vote. Oh, Bob. Bob. You're being hurtful, Bob. You're being hurtful. Just keep losing there, Brom, and future generations will curse your name. Here's the thing, Bob. Here's the thing. If you actually want something done, you believe doing what you've always done is the path to actually getting something done. That is the functional definition of insanity. What are you doing that you're going to believe that's going to get something done? Do you honestly believe that there are real issues that you want to get accomplished? Do you want high-speed rail? Do you want people to be able to go to school without being beat over the head in regards to trying to get an education? Do you want student debt erased? Do you know the beneficial effects of erasing student debt? It's like an infusion into the economy. What do you want? And do you believe that the party who doesn't want any of this stuff is somehow going to get you to that point? It's time for a change. That's the point. If you continuously vote for a party that in no way represents your interests, then yeah, you deserve what you've gotten at that point, since you're perfectly aware that nothing is going to change in that process. They're going to look at you, Bob, and say you have nowhere else to go, and Bob is going to say, you're right. You're right. I'll make you some bagels. I'll make you some bagels. I know you had sex with the maid. I know you just took a heroin shot while taking a bomb hit, while drinking a beer. I know you're an alcoholic drug addict. But I, Bob Ramirez, will stand by you in this, because I believe you have a good heart. I believe you have a good heart. And you said I have too much trouble on my thighs and I have nowhere else to go, so I'll just stay in Bob. I'm Bob Ramirez. Democrats are officially a lost cause, and all liberals and progressives. Yeah. Jamal, it will be gone Tuesday. Please don't do Venus Project on Tuesday. I would like to ask why there are assets for sale and they're trying to raise money to build on the land. I can't change it. I mean, we've already agreed on it. But send me your question and I'll ask. Send me your question. If you can't be there, send me your question. Let's see. Yeah, people are disliking Bob's opinion on this. Bob is in a troll. Bob just has a very different view of what we're dealing with and how to resolve it. Yeah, Bob's not a troll. He's like he's a tepid troll. He's not a real troll. He's not a real troll. He's giving his real opinion. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, it's Tuesday. So on Tuesday, the Venus Project, Roxanne Meadows will be here. And on Wednesday, Sane Progressive will be here. So tomorrow, this month is going to be a busy month. Exactly. We have tried voting third party. Big election after election with no results. We have not tried voting third party. Jill Stein got 1% of the vote. 1%. How are you saying we've tried? We've tried that, man. We've given 1% to that cause. We've tried that. It's time to move on. Are you shitting me, Bob? Come on. Come on, Bob. Come on, man. Come on, dog. Come on. Come on. It's like third party. We've done that. We've given Jill Stein 1% of the vote. We've tried that, man. We've tried that. It's like, come on. Come on. Come on, Bob. What time on Tuesday? Kalita, it's going to be 5 o'clock on Tuesday. I'm trying to do my shows at 5 o'clock. That's my goal. I'm trying to have a daily show at 5 o'clock, 5 or 6 o'clock. So I'm trying to abide by that goal and stick to that goal. So if I can help it, it's going to be 5 o'clock. Captain Obvious. Bob is hilarious. Bob is awesome. I like Bob. Just because he's getting you to think and define your argument doesn't make him a troll. Yeah, Bob's not a troll. I don't think he's a troll. Like I said, just slightly better. I mean, just slightly, a little bit more than a troll. No, I don't think he's a troll. He has a point of view. He has a different point of view. That's all. That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Jamal, has the Venus Project made any traction? Noble Brown. It's hard to answer that. So I want to say no, but I don't think no is right. So the Zeitgeist film with Peter Joseph was inspired by the Venus Project. Like, so the original film that he made, you know, kind of laying out problems and stuff like that, and people have taken issue with some parts of it, but his overarching point was, is this really the world that you want? You have choice. You're beings of choice. You have choice. Is this the world that you want? Now, you can choose any world that you want, providing you're willing to deal with the consequences of that particular arrangement. Are you okay with the consequences of this particular arrangement? How much suffering? How many people are in dire straits? How many people don't have access to the things that they need across the world? Are you happy with this? The second film, he dealt with this thing of, okay, well, what's a solution? What's a viable solution? And one of the things he came up with was the Venus Project, Jack Fresco. If you're asking me if it had traction, I would say that from the standpoint of getting it across to somebody who put it on blast and whose film made major splashes, I'm saying yes. If you're saying politically, no. No, not from a politics standpoint. One of the things I hope to do with my show, if my show ever gets big, is by talking about stuff like this, that it gains some level of political traction. Meaning people start picking up maybe an argument. People start picking up maybe a point of view, a change in their workable point of view in regards to the things that they want and the things that they believe their society should be. It gained traction with me. It gained traction with Peter Joseph. His film had millions of followers. And even though it hasn't necessarily gained political traction, some of the ideas are being set in the community or the society itself. The issue with it is so far beyond where we are. Like I just made this point of how conservatives just fall in line regardless of what's being said. As long as there's some big alpha male, these guys will, bend the knee. Thinking that this idea of servitude is somehow commensurate with morals and values. It's fucking amazing. If you have something like that in your society, these guys are so entrenched in a way of thinking that they believe that this stuff is real. Like they believe that the culture and all this stuff is real. That stuff is not real. Those things are just, if you're in a different country, you would have different culture, different ideas on this type of stuff. They don't know. That's what I'm saying. Most people don't know. Most people don't know that they can change or they control their arrangement. So ideas saying that you control your arrangement, they can't see it. They can't see it. So the question becomes one or two things. How do you move your society a little bit closer to something like that? Like how do you get away from where you are and get closer to something like the Venus Project? What are the minor changes, these minute changes, one change after the next, targeted changes in the way that your society is arranged that get you to that point? You could do that. You could do that. If you had a party that was committed to something like that, you could do that. It would take time, but each minor change that you make will become normalized in the society itself. In the same way that the changes made by Republicans have become somewhat normalized in our society to make it look like this is just the way politics is. This wasn't the way politics was. You had FDR back in the 40s having a different brand of politics. 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. A different brand of politics. Small, minor changes. Letting those changes be normalized before moving on to the next change. You could do it. Again, you need a concerted effort to do that. You need a party that can be there for generation after generation, with each person having that plan firmly fixed in their mind, even though they're not necessarily nailing down the plan. Meaning, I'm not telling you what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. I'm not telling you, I'm just doing it. It's a revolution, but it's a political revolution. But it's done in the shadows and secrets, where you're not necessarily getting across all of the overarching goals of what you want to accomplish. Yes, you could do it. The other way is everything falls apart. Human life goes to shit. Economic system goes bust and collapses. Some, an asteroid hits the planet, some kind of climate change thing, completely destabilizes society, and society starts something different. And in the collapse and the ruins, you have people who say, we don't want to do that again. We fucked up. We were savages and animals, and we did bad things to each other in the way that we've decided to organize our affairs. We don't want to do that again. And you create this kind of system, this hegemonic view of things, where human beings are far more important than any kind of monetary pursuit. In fact, you can make the case that monetary pursuit has nothing to do with that particular society because they were so turned off by what happened with the other one, meaning our society. We would be considered prehistory at that point. Savages and animals, in the same way we look at Romans. You can get it in two ways. I would prefer the former, but I gotta be honest, I suspect the latter. So, I suspect the latter. Let's see. Chuck Brock. I like that name. Chuck Brock. It's a badass name. It's like a... I know why. It puts me in the name of Charles Bronson. It's like the strong, rugged name. Like punch somebody in the face any day of the week. At some point, the third party would capture enough to affect the election, which is why the debate rules changed after 1992 Ross Perot. Yes, yes. Campaign which almost cost Clinton the election. If you remember this, Ross Perot made a huge splash on this. Now, at that time, they used to have, I think it was the Women League of Voters who used to have these debates. After Ross Perot, fuck that. Fuck that. Because they understood something fundamental. If you let them on stage, they may actually make sense. And if they make sense, and it makes us look insane, that is a problem. That's a problem. It's the same reason why they hate Bernie Sanders. That's why. Like, Bernie Sanders says something fundamentally different than the other parties. And by being there on the left, and people are like, that guy's making sense. I like what that guy's saying. He's making sense. You lose your legitimacy when Sanders is standing beside you. And you're calling yourself the left, and they believe Sanders. And there's a fundamental difference between what Sanders is saying and what you're saying. It makes you look bad. It makes you look incompetent. And it makes you look, to be honest, illegitimate. At least based on your own standards of governance. Or based on your own philosophical responsibility as a Democratic Party. Yeah, they would rather lose to a Republican than essentially win with Sanders. For that specific reason. They don't want to fundamentally change the workable point of view of the party. They want to keep their donors. They want to keep the moneyed interest that funds that party. And Sanders is fundamentally a threat to that. So, at least I hope he is fundamentally a threat to that. Sadly, Jamal has missed my point again and falsely concluded that I support neo-Democrats. Weird, oh well. No, Bob, I'm not concluding you're supporting Democrats. I am making the point to you that if you're saying that you're not supposed... If you're saying that your goal is not to make the choice, I'm saying this poorly. If you're saying that you don't necessarily, or you're taking the position that you need to vote for X, then yeah, I mean, I don't know another way around it. What other way are you trying to square it? We're saying that you should say no if it's not supporting your interests. I read your quote aloud, dude. I read it. Let me see. Let me see what I missed. Maybe I read it wrong or incorrectly. I don't want you getting the idea that I'm reading your quotes wrong. Where is it? I don't see it. Shit. Bob, I don't see your quote, dude. Bob, re-give your quote. I don't want to misquote you, and I don't want to give a wrong impression. If I'm going to bash you, I'm going to bash you in good faith. I don't want to bash people in bad faith. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. That's Bob bashing me, saying I missed this point. Where is it? Vote Democrats in the Stone Age. No, that's not it. Clear the road so third party can get ahead. Okay, that sounds on board. Jamal, I hated the idea of Hillary, but my hands were too dainty to vote against her. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. I voted for Jill Stein. I don't see your quote, Bob. Yeah, Bob, I don't see your quote. I'll say put it up, Bob. It upset duopoly. I'm saying weaken the Democrats by costing them elections. Then there would be room for a new party. Oh, okay, I see, Bob. Okay. I agree with that, Bob. But not voting for Trump. If that's what you mean by dainty hands, that I did. That the way to punish Democrats would be to vote for Trump. No, you miss. My point is always clear. Vote for somebody who represents your interests. I'm not playing this fucking around with the voting stuff. I am voting for somebody who represents my interests because they represent my interests. Donald Trump does not represent my interests. I understand that you're saying vote for him in order to hurt Democrats. Like I'm voting for Trump because I want to put a knife in Democrats. That's the same gamesmanship that people take when they're saying, well, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton because I'm terrified of Trump. I'm not playing that game. I just want people to vote for who represent their interests. If I am wrong and more people feel that their interest is represented by Hillary Clinton, It hurts. It hurts. But I believe that I can pull enough people out of the political process by voting for somebody else other than Democrats and Republicans. That still makes her lose. Because whether you want to say it or not, I voted for Jill Stein. Hillary Clinton lost that election. My theory worked. I mean, but, you know. But yeah, if you want to call it dainty hands, then okay. Hillary, she was our religious idol around, don't you know? Republicans, I'd vote for Sam Ronan. Pete D, fucking A. Yeah, because Sam Ronan has jumped parties in this way, in this weird way. I got to be honest, I don't know how that's going to work. I'm immensely curious on how this is going to work. Are Republicans going to back him up? So it's possible. I can believe that Sam Ronan gives his spiel to a Republican crowd, and the Republican crowd says, dude, I actually agree with you. I think we need to do more for jobs and workers. You have some other ideas on these kind of lefty stuff that I don't really give two shits about. But if you don't focus on identity too much, I can get on board with this other stuff. I can totally believe that. I can totally believe that. I'm more curious about what is the party itself going to do with this when Sam Ronan just is against everything that the party does when they get into Congress. I'm amazingly curious on this. Tyler Infinger. I didn't vote for Jill in Louisiana because I knew it wouldn't matter. I'm surrounded by idiots down here. To most of young policies, not party line. Yes. Moni G. Yeah, unfortunately, the Democratic Party platform isn't true to my democratic ideals. Yeah, Moni, that's like saying, I didn't leave the party left me. That's what you're saying. And that's fair. That's profoundly fair. Kalita, yes, but people also go to party first, then policies. Unfortunately, yeah. It's almost like I can't hear you unless you're coming from the Democratic Party as somebody who's affiliated with the party. And it takes something to jar them out of that. I think that's why people say wake up. Like, that's what they use. I think that's why they use the wake up thing. I was fully on board for this for God knows how long, and I thought what they were telling me was absolutely true. And I thought the Republicans were completely lying to me. Now, Republicans are lying very often, but so are Democrats. So are Democrats. It takes something to jar people out of that. For me, it was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I think it was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was, wait a minute, this is amazingly different than what this guy is talking about. What the fuck? What the fuck? And at some point it was, this guy's out there murdering civilians left and right. And at that point, the dam had broken. The dam had broken. But I think it takes something to jar them out of it. Some incongruity in the way that the world is set up. This kind of cognitive dissonance that breaks them and jars them and says, okay. If my beliefs in this was right, this would not take place. Until they honestly engage that, I don't think they see it. Do you think that Democrats did not know they were being punished by taking for granted voters in 2016? No, they did know that. I do believe they knew that. Do you remember like Chuck Schumer coming out saying, you know, for every Democrat they will lose, would pick up a Republican? They full well understood that. They didn't care. They did not care. Jamal, identity reminds others that we're all in the same boat. It makes GOP feel there's no back seat. All seats are the same. Fucking A. Yeah. Noble Brown. Yeah. Agreed. I don't think you should abandon identity politics, by the way. I don't believe that at all. I just believe that you can do both. We're going to stand for all of these groups. Yes, we're going to go to the mat for DACA recipients. Yes, we're going to go to the mat if you're, you know, being locked up for some stupid shit like that. Or for these issues of race and gender and sexuality. Yes, we are supporting all those things. All of us are in the same boat. We are all together on this. Yes, you should go to the mat for that. Democrats, however, just use that to obfuscate from dealing with issues that deal with their donors. And the fact is, you can't deal with issues of class without dealing with issues of economics. It's a false choice. You need both. You can't look at the level of poverty of African Americans and think to yourself, this is completely detached from issues of class. It is not. It is not. So yeah, you need both. You need both. Like when people talk about SJWs, I think to myself, again, this is a spectrum. Like the argument is false. Like most of these arguments tend to be false. It's not, it presupposes that there is a thing that you put down somewhere in some esoteric realm that says right here, this is a definitive spot where if you go beyond the spot, you're an SJW. I found it. I found it. I've delineated it in the spectrum, whatever the spectrum is. No, it's a spectrum. That spectrum wobbles. It's society. It's somewhat cultural in the way that spectrum wobbles. If Martin Luther King, like I just have this image in my head of Martin Luther King being called the SJW, and it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? No, there's a spectrum. You stand strong on those things. You just don't necessarily overly emphasize those things to the degree where it colors everything that's taking place. Those things are spectrums. Yeah. They use fear, the churches, they use fear. Economic policies affect all identities. MLK understood that. Yes, he was. That's why he was a socialist. That's why he was a socialist. Rabidly anti-imperialist. Those speeches, man, against Vietnam are amazing. Those things are immensely applicable today. You can listen to those speeches today, and you can indict Bush, Obama, and Trump. This particular video is about Obama. So this idea of Obama using the name of King when King would have been out there denouncing that same president. I mean, it's jarring. It's jarring. Elephants on coke. MLK also like Ram trucks. Apparently. Apparently. Yeah, apparently. If you can believe the video, yeah, apparently he loved Ram trucks. Until you get the news networks, masses, you cannot win elections. I don't know if that's true, Bob. I mean, look, Bob, I would agree with you. It's uphill. It's massively uphill. I would agree with you on that. But just because it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be done. At some point, all sorts of things never have been done. If you can get an aggregation of the left to believe in actual collectivism, meaning working together, you have lefty media networks. Those networks are growing in regards to the number of people who watch them, particularly within the loss of mainstream media and the validity of mainstream media. It may be doable, man. It may be doable. If places like Cenk Uygur and TYT don't support Democrats in destroying the left with this Russiagate nonsense, maybe those media outlets will be around to assist in those things. But if they keep attacking the left, gutting the viewership of media networks, particularly when they lean left, Truthdig, Alternate, those things are getting gutted in regards to attention online, like the search results. They're attacking the left. And groups on the left are literally falling in line with their attacks on the left. Those things can change, Bob. That's all I'm saying. It's not a foregone conclusion. At least not in my opinion. The Green Party has consistently been the party with the platform representation best reflects most, if not all, of the black community's interests. The problem with the Green Party is just the Green Party. I don't, God damn it, man. I don't say it in a bad way. And I'm saying that in a slightly joking way. Somebody got mad at me because I was making the point that politics is perception, meaning propaganda is a part of the process, and that you need to use propaganda in ways that are beneficial to the interests of the person you're using the propaganda on. Like understanding that spectacle is part of the process of politics, meaning Green Party's problem in one single part, just one part, is the impression of an environment. I mean, it gives the impression that the party is purely in the bag for purely just the environment and completely bypasses all of the positive policies that the Green Party espouses. The only thing people think of is green, environment. Well, fuck, man, the environment is nice, but I need to put money in my pocket. Completely missing that the Green Party is on board for that particular policy. Some of it is the name. Some of it, a lot of it, is also the parties edging you out. I would love to see you guys in an aggregate with something with Brana. To be a delegation as one of a whole. In the same way, you don't want to lose your, consistency of what you are. Democratic Socialists of America wouldn't want to lose who they are. Socialist Select would not want to lose who they are. Progressive Independence Party would not want to lose who they are. In the same way, you want your integrity to be respected. Those other parties do too. Those other parties also do. Come together in aggregation. Become a force of the left in this way. If there are more of you, and if you're more developed, then you will probably get more votes and more influence in that delegation. Yeah, that's what I'm saying on that. I'm not going to bash him on this because I don't think... I like the Greens. I voted for Joe Stein. Whigs were referred to as the do-nothing. Sound familiar? Right. Right. It's like they're all going to attack those things as, oh, there's no chance for that. That can never take place. If you can still the cowardice, and you can look into the abyss, and you can say and realize that if we hit a wall at 60 miles per hour, we're just as dead. Republicans may want to hit it at 100 miles per hour, but if you hit a wall at 60 miles per hour, you are just as dead. If you want to actually get something accomplished, meaning you look at the world and say, look, I think people need a minimum wage, a decent minimum wage. If they work, if they actually get out the house in the morning and they do something, whether they want to do it or not, if at the very least they're doing something, they need to get paid a decent wage for something that they're doing. If you want that accomplished. If you want to say, oh man, it's gross to put, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 of debt on the heads of kids for having the temerity to get an education. And that slows down our economy. It puts a lag on everything in our economy. So yeah, if we have the capacity to spend $1 trillion a year on the military, and I'm talking about black budget projects and everything else, it's probably more than $1 trillion, but up to $1 trillion a year on military, then yeah, we have $80 billion to send our kids to school. We have $80 billion to make sure that there's no college debt for the kids, to get rid of the college debt in this country. We have the cash to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. And yes, we're going to use the powers of the Treasury to do that, meaning it's not going to be a burden on the economy. It's going to be a beneficial thing to the economy. I'm making a point to you that if you want to get anything real substantively accomplished, yes, we want to have a Green New Deal because climate change is a game changer and we need to do something about this. But it will be beneficial to everybody in the society itself. We're going to give tax breaks to people who put solar panels on their houses. We as the government of the United States are going to fund companies to deal with this particular thing because this is an emergency, meaning jobs being created in the United States in addition to getting those things for low cost or no cost to put on one house after the next to make those things independent energy sources. Meaning that the money that you were paying for your power bill goes away. You're welcome. You're welcome. In addition to the jobs that are being created to do it. And those jobs are worker co-ops. I'm making the point to you that if you want to get something accomplished, you can do it. You can't do it with the Democratic Party, not the way that the party is. So what do? You do nothing with Democrats? Or you actually try to form something new? Gutting them in the process, understanding that you need to gut them if you're going to form something new. I'm not gonna overly go into it. I'm not even a cash thing. Its priority is the evil of two lessers, Mr. Speaks. Yeah. Here, by all means, call out the crap. Yes, I agree with Gardner because the system will corrupt any party that rises within it. The system itself needs to change, man. That's the other part to this. When you get into power, you need to change fundamentally the system itself. Zizek, I know I always mess his first name up, kind of made this point that leftists who get into power ultimately end up with one major question. Do you touch the system itself or not? Do you touch the stove? Do you touch the stove? Meaning, if you need to get anything real accomplished, you need to change the system itself. Otherwise, the system is going to continue to breed corruption. It's going to continue to breed these type of people who get into power and feed money to the top 1% because it advances their own aims. The system itself needs to be fundamentally changed. Otherwise, you're going to continue to get corrupt politicians. And not to mention, any gains that you yourself make will be under threat of change in of itself. I keep asking this question, why do you need a new deal? You need a new deal because the first one was completely destroyed the moment that it was put into effect. So, let's see. As I says, unfortunately, nothing really changes in the United States until there's a crisis. An economic crash on the order of the Great Depression or greater is necessary to clear out the dead wood. They had that already. The last crash in 2008 was like the Great Depression. We have not yet crawled out of it. Look, the United States may say the economics forecast and all this stuff is great and the world is awesome. The unemployment rate, how do you think we do the unemployment rate? It's not the same way that they do in Europe. They call people up and say, hey, are you employed? Are you working? If you say, you know what, man, I'm not even looking for a job, they take you off the map. You're not even included into the stats. So they would come back saying, hey, we got a 4.9% unemployment rate. We're doing fucking awesome. They're not including the people who are underemployed. They're not including the people who just gave up looking. They're not including any of those people. That number is, I was saying this when Obama was in office, that number is bogus. Obama came out saying, look at all these jobs that I got. The overwhelming majority of those jobs were low-paying or part-time jobs. I mean, his report was a disaster. They propped this guy up in regards to his jobs report, and this thing was a disaster. It was an utter disaster. I mean, come on. I'm making this point to you that this is that scenario. They've managed this because of Obama, but they've managed this from the standpoint of optics and theater. No, these numbers are fudgy. These numbers aren't necessarily real. If you actually ask people who really wanted to have a job, who wanted to be able to support their family, who wanted something substantial where they could say, yes, I am working. I am not necessarily looking for a job. I am working now. If you wanted something to honestly take those numbers, use the European model of trying to figure out, meaning the number of unemployment and requests and all this other stuff. We don't do that. Our numbers are fishy at best. Those numbers are fishy at best. And yeah, the overwhelming majority of the jobs created were low income or part-time. What, 90% of the wealth went to the top 1%, and something like 90% of the jobs created were low income or part-time. Just saying. Just saying. Joe Hickey, they fix unemployment figures in the UK too, Jamal, in much the same way. I thought you guys were better at that. Like, I thought you guys used, like, unemployment and the money that you were giving out and all this other stuff. I thought it was more of a technical process for you guys to figure out what unemployment is. But here, the numbers are fudgy. The numbers are fudgy at best. I mean, people look at numbers and never look behind it. Like, they would say, we got a FISA warrant. Well, I mean, we got a FISA warrant. I mean, we went to a FISA court. There had to be some legitimacy to it. And you know, and you're like, 99.7% get approved. That's just a rubber stamp. But they use the FISA warrant as an argument for, hey, they got it. I mean, must have had something. Bolstering the idea of a mass surveillance. Bolstering the idea of saying fuck all to the Fourth Amendment for individuals in this country in order to attack Donald Trump. Ignoring the fact that they can get a FISA warrant on a ham sandwich. This is what the left has been doing. This is what the left has been doing. So, Jamal got a sweater from the dryer lint trap. I did not. I did. Mrs. Thomas bought me this sweater. I love the sweater. To justify the cutting of service. The UK is better, but they still fudge their numbers. Brom, I see. This shirt just made me want to give up. Tyler Infinger. Damon Talisman is going to take people uprising to take back our country movement for us to take back our country instead of corporations. There's Obama again, giving us all the platform. Oh, giving us all the finger, yeah. Yeah, right, but you're like, I know you guys believed in me. You know, I got to be honest. Listening to that speech in the beginning was difficult to do. It was difficult to do. Like I have, if I'm being honest, there was this kind of emotional pull listening to it. He's just starting his presidency, literally just starting his presidency, and you had Jesse Jackson crying. You know, when Obama was elected, you had all of this hope that was pouring out of people. The man ran his campaign on hope and huge vats of money. I mean, there was something there where people felt, like people tangibly felt a connection with the guy when he first got in office. You listen to his speeches. He's a fucking amazing speaker. And he gets up there receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, giving a speech on why war is sometimes necessary. What war is necessary. A forecast of what was to come. Yeah, he failed. Granted, it depends on what you were expecting him to do. But if you're going to make these flamboyant speeches on hope and change, I mean, interrogate the words themselves. What does hope and change mean to you? Part of the problem with the speech and the words is like I said before, they're fuzzy. Nobody knows what those mean. They only mean something to the person who's wielding the words. And he wields them with great force and skill. What does hope for change mean in a political context? And if you had that many people, white, black, Asian, all across the political spectrum, all across the economic spectrum, well, less so plutocrats, but listening to this guy saying, oh my God, this guy's going to change it all. He's black. That's the first change. But what he's saying, his rhetoric, this euphoric rhetoric coming from this man, he's going to change it all. Because we all know that what people say is exactly what people do. I'm being sarcastic. Yeah, there was expectations and there were hopes. And slowly, one painful year after the next, not so much. They passed the right-wing healthcare bill. The Republican Party, they had the House and the Senate, but Democrats had the House and Senate, passed a right-wing healthcare bill. They protected drug companies, meaning the drug companies could still charge you, for the most part, whatever they want. Medicare wasn't allowed to negotiate for those drug prices. These are the deals that they made. In what part of this process was the human being put as a forefront of the decision-making process? Is it not a technical choice to say how many people do we have in this country and how do we supply the best healthcare for the cheapest price? That seems to be the most technical choices of technical choices. You can look around the world for that question. You can pull scientists and other engineers into a room for that question. But it seems like that would be the question to ask. That was not the question to ask. Because I guarantee you that in asking a question in that way, allowing drug companies to milk Americans, to milk your voters, the people who voted for you and trusted you and depended on you to be their protector or their avatar of their will to some degree. They depended on you. And they were let down when you allowed drug companies to milk them for their profits. Homeowners depended on you. And you allowed those homeowners to go bust. While at the exact same time you were out there saying, I am the one standing between you and the pitchforks. As you threw your body on the line to protect Wall Street bankers. I got you guys. I got you. You're safe. I'm protecting you from the pitchforks. I'm Barack Obama. You should have told us that the guy who picked your campaign, or the people who are going to be in your office, was some Citigroup. When they asked me about the release of Hillary Clinton's emails, the reason why I say these things were necessary and was a good thing, because we would have never known that Obama's staff was picked by Citigroup. It explains some things, doesn't it? Explains some things. All I'm saying is there were great hopes, and those hopes were dashed. As an African American, from my perspective, something very specific. This other stuff is policy, but something very specific that dug in me. Like tremendously dug in me, that I hated miserably, and in many respects wrote him off after that. When Louis Gates, his friend and professor, was accosted at his door, he's at his own door, by cops. And they shake him down and eventually drag him to jail at his own goddamn front door. Obama comes out and initially says the cops act stupidly. The Republicans booed him. Boo! Boo! You said something tepidly critical of the cops. Boo on you, man. Boo on you. And a display of weakness, profound weakness. And if you want to ever say anything about race, and I rarely bring up race when I talk about Obama, at least from the context of him and his behavior as race, it was a letdown for him to come out with his tail between his legs, calling for a beer summit for a cop that locked the guy up at his own goddamn front door. He did behave stupidly. You should have been a little bit harsher in your commentary, but I understand. You're being the president of the United States. You take your language seriously. At least you said something initially. They acted stupidly. Tail between your legs, coming back out is a fail. Oh, that's a fail. They're going to abuse you regardless. They abuse you. They call you every name but a child of God throughout the entirety of your campaign. Yes, some of it was racist. Yes, all of it was there to try to get you to act out, and at no point did you act out. And good on you for that. There was a certain dignity and poise about him in that office, even though I disliked what he was doing. But that particular moment, It's weakness. I'm sorry. It's profound weakness. You knew that they were harassing him. You knew that he was at his front door. You knew he did nothing wrong. You knew the person who was in wrong was the fucking cop. And your response to that, to come out after the fact, impeaching your first bit of testimony when you came out saying they acted stupidly, which was true, to say we're going to have a beer summit. We're going to drag that dumbass cop that arrested that guy at his door, flaming incompetence. We're going to drag him and allow him to come to the White House to talk to the person that he harassed, the person that did nothing wrong, the person that was at his front door, and the guy that was supposed to be your friend. We're going to bring him to the White House for some publicity stunt. I don't want him anywhere near the White House. I don't want him anywhere near anywhere. He did behave stupidly. He harassed the guy at his door. You shouldn't help that particular thing. You shouldn't bolster that behavior of cops. Yeah, you should have condemned the behavior because the behavior was stupid. It's a massive degree of incompetence and arrogance to lock somebody up at their front door. And you as a president of the United States, as a black president of the United States, should not co-sign bad cop behavior, which is exactly what you just did. That was the thing that pissed me the fuck off during that administration. Of everything else, there's certain things that bug me from the standpoint of I don't like that particular policy. I think that particular policy increases terrorism. Or I think you murdering civilians abroad is a horrible fucking... All those things bother me. But I am a product of this country. I do have a tether to me from the standpoint of race. That even though I can ignore that tether in regards to dealing with issues of policy and everything else. And some things, not so much. I don't like the way cops shoot people in the face and get off on it. Even during your administration, I don't particularly like that. I don't necessarily blame you for it, but I don't particularly like it. This is different. This was you put on the spot for that particular thing. This is you saying something initially about that particular thing. And then tail between your legs, shoulders slumped, head down. We should have a beer summit. We should have a beer summit. I shouldn't have said that cop that acted stupidly. I'm sorry. You got my apologies. Yeah, I'm not going to bitch on that. That pissed me off like nobody's business. That annoyed the shit out of me. Yeah, or plant the guns on kids. That's the other one. That's the other one. Jeremy Chase, we get it, Bob. You believe the best way to get rid of corrupt pieces of shit is replacing them with corrupt pieces of shit. That's funny. Come on, Bob. You have to know that's funny. Liquid Zero. QAnoners think Trump is preparing Guantanamo for the pedophiles and elites. Yeah, those people are insane. I'm sorry. I've heard a little bit about the QAnon thing. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. These are people who are full well believing that Trump is some kind of hero and savior in this story. Trump is not your savior. He is not your hero. He is nobody's hero. Trump has no ideology but what's best for Trump. Don't get it twisted. I understand that Democrats cheated. I understand that they're not to be trusted. I understand that this Russia thing is bullshit. I understand that they're taking us closer to war. I understand all of this. All of this is true. But it doesn't mean that Republicans are any better. It doesn't mean that Republicans are your saviors. And it damn sure does not mean that Trump is your savior. What of this? What if this administration has given you that impression? When he was lining his administration full of millionaires and billionaires? What gave you the impression he was looking out for your interests? I'm fundamentally unaware of what that is. Yeah. Jamal, what do you think of Eric Holder running for president after he said on Rachel Maddow's show that he is seriously considering to run? Eric Holder should stay the fuck home. Stay home. That's what I think. I think Eric Holder should stay home. During the Gulf crisis, Obama set up a program for scientists to sign up to donate inventions to remove oil from the spill. Then he turned over control of BP and locked and gagged us on confidentiality. Think about that! Think about that. Hey, can we guys get you to do an invention? Oh yeah, we'll turn this over to BP. You know, one thing I would say too about the government thing. If you get into office, if you are putting money and investing money into those resources, you should get part of the kitty. Meaning, if I am working on the internet and I get the internet working, meaning the government, whatever information, whatever money they put into it, to the same degree, the government should get a kickback for it. That's only fair. It's fucking business. Why would the government sign over these inventions to the other people? No, the government should get a piece. The government should get a piece. If you want to ask us, hey, how do we pay for these programs? There we go. The government gets a piece. The government gets a piece. Third parties could win if enough people voted for them. Yeah, well, that's just kind of tautology. Furthermore, you're not winning anything if you win by electing someone who would give the same policy as the GOP. Right. It's like, yes, we got this guy in office. And he's turning around doing the same thing as the Republican governor. When this Democrat was going for fiscal responsibility in Virginia, and Democrats used the fact that this guy won and saying, hey, see, we got a Democrat in. There's going to be a wave. There's going to be a wave. We need everybody to believe there's going to be a wave. We need people to believe it. And the guy gets in office, and the first thing he says is, yeah, I'm not on board for this Medicare expansion thing. I'm not on board for that. I'm not on board for that. It's fucking amazing. All right, guys, we've run over 2 hours. I started this as somewhat of a small thing. I was going to bring in commentary because I knew there were people around who had certain feelings about this. So I felt if those people wanted to share their opinions in this video, felt free. That being said, I wanted to decimate the argument that Obama was doing nothing or he was innocuous on foreign policy. And I think in the first 20 minutes, that was done. I think that was done. He was murdering civilians at a massive clip. And I don't, if you're on the left, I got to be honest, I don't know how you support that. I don't know how you support that. If you're saying that murdering terrorists is the thing that you need to do, and in the pursuit of murdering terrorists, you're okay with the murdering of massive quantities of civilians, do you understand that the civilians that you're murdering are creating terrorists? The reason that Obama's kill list, the guy who got the Nobel Peace Prize had a kill list, yeah. The reason his kill list kept getting longer is because he was killing civilians. He was creating those terrorists. Those terrorists weren't burned that way. They was created under the bombs dropped by Obama. So I'll leave it at that. Jamal chats, everybody, hopefully I can call in during the show. Jamal, it's a good idea. Yeah, man, I've liked the call-in thing so far. It's plugged directly into Google. And so it rings on Google, and it doesn't necessarily ring on my phone. That's even better, the fact it rings on Google, because it picks up in the mic itself. Not just the mic, it's the audio thing to the computer itself that allows it to ring in. So, no, man, I love this one. I love the call-ins. And yeah, man, feel free, guys, to call in. That has been a service that I've given to my patrons. If at some point I get enough patrons, I will probably just allow everybody to do it. But right now, I kind of want to make sure my patrons get something back. They're helping support the show. In fact, they're helping the show persist. So, all right, guys, I'm going to end it here. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for the back and forth. Thank you for the people who didn't necessarily agree with me. Thank you for the people who did. I don't want an echo chamber. I don't want assholes, but I don't want an echo chamber. And by the way, people aren't trolls just because they disagree, man. People can disagree. They can have honest, valid reasons for disagreement. I have no issue with that at all. In fact, to some degree, I enjoy it. It makes the chats more interesting. On Tuesday, Roxanne will be here from the Venus Project, Roxanne Meadows. And on Wednesday, Sane Progressive will be here at 5 p.m. So I'm going to check the times. I'm going to make sure that they're still on board for it. And I'll do another video to nail that down. But it's up to this point, those are the plans for next week. Oh, and by the way, another big guest. Steve Bassett. Now, for those who don't know, Steve Bassett is the only lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for UFOs to open the files. Now, there have been people who said we want the files open. There have been, what did they call him? I guess he called it the press conference. It was a White House press conference where all of these witnesses came up and said, I was in the military. I was in this kind of company. These are the things that we're studying. This topic is real. We need to open the books. And members of Congress sat there and listened to these guys give their spiel. There have been people who have gotten all sorts of testimony from all sorts of witnesses. And I'll do some of the testimonies for some of the people just to show. But some of the testimony is mind-blowing. And extraordinarily serious people. It's not, oh my God, they're eating our babies. Not those people. Serious people who are in either places to which they have been accustomed to, meaning their credentials are, for the most part, impeachable. They were who they say they were, interacting with these amazing things. I do some of those videos. But Steve Bassett is the only lobbyist. He's the only lobbyist. And the man is an awesome speaker, gives an amazing presentation. So I was ecstatic when he said, yes, I'll be on your show. that is going to be likely the end of February. I've just emailed him yesterday. He told me to hit him up. So I'm still looking out for new guests to have on the show. At some point, I want to have enough resources where I can travel to some places to do interviews. But for right now, I'm still trying to pull guests anywhere I can find them. Interesting guests. Somebody, Wolfpack, sent me, and that is like, I think it's Tim Black's Wolfpack, or somebody who has that moniker, sent me the thing to interview. Oh, what is his name? It's another good guest. It's another really, really good guest. So I'm going to try to track him down also. But yeah, man, I am going to try to pull more and more people to interview for the show. I'm probably going to space them out like maybe one per week. With the idea that people can also interact with the person being interviewed. So last week I had Dre Beck. I've had Victor from CFAR. He was on the show. And this week I was supposed to have Sane, and I was supposed to have the other guy. But they'll be on the show next week, so hope you guys can join me. Have Holly back on. Yeah, I check Holly. I check Holly out. I see what she's up with. We just disagree on strategy. Yeah, Bob. I know. Yeah, Bob. At this point, dude, we know. It's but that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. Like I keep saying, the debate between Cenk and Cal was a good thing. I think Cenk's a maniac, but it was a good thing. You got to see that he was a maniac. There may be people who watch this who think I'm completely wrong or think you're completely right, but at the very least, they get to hear out the conversations. So no, this is a good thing, man. It's a good thing. Steve Bassett is the man when it comes to government covering up the truth of UFOs. Snort Y2K. Discussions on UFO must include Project Mogul, Habu, A12, and Project Blue Book. Yes, so I know about Project Blue Book. I don't know about the other ones. But Project Blue Book was a farce. The wild part about it is the guy who ran Project Blue Book comes out later saying the military was covering this shit up and that he became a UFO investigator, believer, and a UFO investigator himself after Project Blue Book. Nah, I love it. Project Stargate, the remote viewers thing, where the U.S. government was studying remote viewers. I don't know the name of the project where they were giving people, like LSD. Okay, they got LSD. The guy jumped out of a fucking window. Yeah, man, some of this stuff is mind-blowing. Project Mockingbird, seeing if the CIA can influence people by giving people and institutions and all these things money, influencers in the society itself to see if they can put certain point of views in the society and shape the opinions of the American public. The CIA is a criminal organization, man. When people say, oh, false flags aren't real and blah, 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 it's like you have no real view of history to even say that. You have no honest view of history to say it. So, yeah, man, I'm going to check those out. Snort. I'll see what those are. I've never heard of these. And when it's shit that I haven't heard of that I'm interested in, I tend to have a tendency to look it up. All right, guys, I'm going to end this here. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys. I do, man. And I don't say that in a perfunctory way. I know sometimes it sounds that way. But the idea that you guys are showing up and we have this kind of community of this to some degree. Even people who, it's not a community. They just come whenever they come. I never started the channel thinking there would be a community. That was something that just kind of organically grew up around the show. But I appreciate your support. I really do. It would be weird to have a show if only one person was here. It's my mom. So, thank you guys for your contributions. Thank you guys for the super cash. Thank you guys for the Patreon. Thank you guys for liking the videos. Thank you guys for sharing the videos. And thank you for even just looking at the video. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.